So what I'm going to show you today is a very simple thing that you can do in After Effects that's very cool. So I'm just going to make a new composition and call it audio bounce, I guess we can call it. And I'm going to drag in a song that I'm going to use, which is just importing. So this is how the song sounds. It's got a bit of an intro.
And he wanted Joe, a god in her.
So there's this intro over here,
Eyes, her eyes.
which I'm just going to chop out by doing this. Holding Alt and the square brackets and the open square bracket. So I'm going to drag that into my composition. My preview is set to the wrong frame rate, which is the problem here. So this is composition is in 25 frames per second. I'll just set mine to that, which it should automatically do. So that's the first step. The second step would be to take your song, and in your effects and presets you're going to search up bass and treble. Hello, bass and treble, and drag that onto your audio clip, and then you can drag the bass up to 100 and the treble to minus 100. Then click on it and hit Control D to duplicate it, and then you'll do that twice. So then from there you have this very and that's deliberately peaking. If you took one away, it would be a little bit less. But it's nice to have both, because then it basically peaks the bass and it makes it better for what we're doing. So then you would go convert audio to keyframes, and you get this null layer called audio amplitude, and I'm just going to call it bass. Then I'm going to do that again, except this is going to go to minus 100 and positive 100 and minus 100 and positive 100. Now we're going to have this very trebly one. So then here we're going to go convert audio to keyframes, and we'll call this one, we'll call this one treble, and then we can delete these two effects off of here. So then we have these two null layers filled with keyframes for the left, right, and center channels, but we don't need the left and right channels because we are just using the mono sound now. So you can delete the left and right from both. So then we're left with these, and if you go into the graph editor, you'll see that you have all of these values, which are the same as the audio amplitude, but obviously bassy and trebly for the ones that we selected. So what we can do now is, I'm just going to make a new layer. I can actually do it here, new layer solid, and we'll make it kind of like a nice, what's a good color? I guess this blue will work as a background. Actually, a pink is always good. And then what we will do is we'll make a new shape layer, and we'll just hold down on this and go to ellipse and double click. Then we'll create an ellipse. It has a gradient, which I don't want, so I'm just going to hold down Alt and click through these till we go to a solid color. Then in our shape layer options here, I'm just going to delete the stroke and leave the fill as it is for now. And the path, I'm just going to uncheck the chain, and I'm going to match them together by making them both 720. And then I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Then position, this is our height, this is our width property, this is our height property, and I'm just going to go our width, which is 1280 divided by 3, which will put that guy off to the center. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and then I'm going to times this value by 2, times it by 2, and then these are off center, so that's not actually the ideal. So I might do 1280 divided by 4, and then times this one by 2. By 2, and then just plus 320. Cool. So now these two are next to each other. And we can actually hide poke the eyes out of those little null layers, because we don't need them just yet. And I'm going to drag them to the bottom just because we really don't need to touch them. So now we have our background layer, 2 circles, and these 2 layers with their audio amplitude keyframes, and you can see the numbers are different as you go through them. So what we're going to do here is we need to add a little expression to either of them. And what the expression will do is the expression is called linear. And what linear does is it will convert a range of keyframes or the numbers that is spat out by keyframes to different numbers. So as an example, if we take this slider, and we'll see our lowest value is obviously going to be 0 because there's no audio, and we'll take like an average high, which is around like something that frequently gets used, which I would say is like 39. We'll call it 38 just to make it easier. So then what we'll do is we're going to alt click on the slider stopwatch, and we're going to delete that, and we're going to say linear, open brackets, value, comma. So now this is, after value you have 2 numbers, so your numbers will be x, y, a, and b, right? And then you'll close it, and it's going to give me an error now. But your first value is the current lowest, so 0, and then the lowest you choose to use, which we chose 38, and then it will be the values you want to change it to. So we're going to use this to modify our scale keyframes of our shape layers. So we'll change it to 50 as 50% scale, and 100 because I like the size right now, and I'm going to hit enter on my numpad because enter on your keyboard will add a new line, but you can also just click out of it like that. And then I'm going to do the same for this layer, except it won't be the same values. It will be linear, value, comma, 0, and then this one, what's more suitable is probably like an 80. I'm going to do 75, then I'm going to do 50, and 100. Just because it's going to convert 0, like within a range, or linearly scaling, it's going to convert 0 to 50 and 75 to 100. So everything between there will work out, and I'll show you how that works now. If I press S on both of these layers, oops, S, I don't even need to change anything about them, except for I need to change these, because this scale is at 68. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these hundreds to 68 because I like the size they're at now, and I think that will suit. 68. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to alt click on the scale one, and I'm just going to drag it to the slider. Hit enter on my keyboard. Then I'm going to alt click on this one, drag it to the other slider, and we're done. So what you'll see now is that if we go on both these layers and look at the scale, you'll see the scale is changing with the music, and it's not together. And if I play them with the music, nothing like some RAM preview. So yeah, what it will do is it takes these keyframes that we've got here, and it makes this pattern work for scale as if you had scale keyframes, which it's not going to show now because it won't carry over. But it's the same pattern. This is the same pattern that will be mapped out onto your scale graph editor, except the range will be, this value would be a 50 and this value would be a 68 as we chose here. So the scale will alter as the song goes up. Like you see, we're doing the bass one now, which is this one, I believe. This one is the bass. So if you watch these values as I slide along this bass slide, you'll see at its peak here, it's going to have 68, and at its lowest point over here, it's going to have 50. And then as it gets lower, it's going to go more towards 50, and as it gets higher, it's going to get more towards 68. And same with the treble. And the reason we put those bass and trebles onto here is to isolate, to kind of cut away as much of the bass frequencies for the bass keyframes that we have here, and then cut as much of the treble away for the treble ones. And then you're left with which is lots of fun.